Hi everyone, nice to see you and welcome to tonight's Alpine story with Adele Pennington. I'm super excited to hear Adele's talk on the Matterhorn and her road trip. I'll let Jenny introduce her shortly, but tonight's a great one, so I'm super excited. And thank you for joining us. We've got just a couple more of these to go after tonight. So these are the last three and really special for us. We set these talks up a little while ago in lockdown when everyone's movements were certainly restricted and we were struggling to do our own in-person events, obviously. So we wanted to provide a bit of Alpine inspiration when times were looking a bit more bleak. But hopefully the weather's a bit sunnier and people can get out even a little bit more right now. So I just wanted to talk to you a little bit about who we are, and then as usual just go through a little bit of Zoom etiquette so you're aware of how we're going to run the session tonight. Lizzie, if you could forward on for me, that would be great. So just to say who we are, and I'll just spend a minute on this because I'm sure lots of you are aware or probably attended our sessions before, but we're a community project of women really looking to support and inspire each other, developing our Alpine skills. So we do that by running in-person events, winter and summer, and we'd go rock climbing, ice climbing, ski touring. We hold avalanche workshops in winter. In summer, we're doing navigation workshops, we're doing alpine climbing, so all sorts of things when we're together. And we have a combination of guided workshops and also stuff that we just do together as members and friends to help each other and learn from each other's experience. We've also got a website, which hopefully some of you will have been on, but I do encourage you to go there. We've got some great content on there. We've got some favourite Alpine routes. So lots of our members have written up their own personal accounts with loads of beta about their favourite Alpine routes and what's accessible and easy to do. And a good range on there. We've even got an Ascent of Cherry on there now, which is quite exciting. And also we've got guide biography. So if you want to look up the guides and instructors that have worked with us or that have spoken on the series, then you can go and find out everything about them, from their top tips for the mountains to becoming alpinists to their favorite mountain snacks. And I think that's about it really. That's all I'm going to say in terms of plugging us, but yeah, do visit the website, and we will be releasing dates for getting together really soon. We were hoping to be in the Dolomites this summer, but I don't think that's looking very likely now. So that will be postponed until 2021. But we're certainly going to do some more local events, and we're going to talk about that later on in newsletters and things. So a little bit of Zoom etiquette, just to say, you may have noticed, but we muted you all and we turned off all your videos as you came on. And that's really just because it can be quite distracting for our speakers if people are coming in and out and their videos are popping up and they're speaking and talking. So what we do is we keep everyone on mute and everyone's video off while people are talking, and then as soon as Adele's finished, we make sure that there's plenty of questions and answers time at the end, and then everybody can get an opportunity to come on. And at that point, if you want to come off mute and show us your lovely face, you'd be more than welcome to. If you're feeling a bit shy and you don't want to have your face shown, I totally understand that, then Jenny will talk you through how you can raise your hand in the chat, a bit like you did when you came in, to say where you were from. And if you raise your hand and put a question in the chat, then we're happy to ask it for you. So that's about it really. And just to say that all the talks are recorded, and also we're currently on Facebook Live. That's just so that people can watch it after the event if they've missed it, and also people that aren't logging in through Zoom can also watch it on Facebook. But just so you're aware, it's publicly available. And now I'm going to hand over to Jenny, who's going to introduce Adele.
Thanks, Louise. Hi, everyone. Great to have you with us again. Thanks for joining us this evening. So this week we've got Adele Pennington talking for us. So Adele has actually been one of my heroes since I was quite small. And she has a fantastic mountain CV. She's climbed 6 of the 14 8,000 meter peaks, along with a lot of British female first ascents, including Amadablam in the winter. So Adele also works as an expedition leader for some big companies like Jackie Globe, and she is also a winter mountaineering and climbing instructor, and so she works mainly up in Scotland, where she's based at the moment, but also leads expeditions all over the world, and she's a fantastic storyteller and has lots and lots of amazing experiences, which I'm not sure we'd manage to fit into a 45-minute talk. So tonight she's just going to be talking to us about a very special ascent of the Matterhorn with her best friend, who she's climbed with over many years, and we'll meet her also in the presentation. So yeah, hope you enjoy this one. Adele, do you want to turn on your video and mic, and then we can crack on. Thanks very much.
Hello there, folks. Thank you very much for the Women's Alpine Adventure Club for asking me to do this talk. Are we ready?
Okay, have you got control of the mouse?
Have I got control? No. Why is it? You practice all these things and then something happens, doesn't it?
Every week there's a new thing that goes wrong.
There we go.
It's always
good.
That's it.
Perfect. Go.
Still no control.
Oh. Technical issues, sorry everyone. When we practiced this, it was great.
Oh.
Maybe it's the rain, maybe it's stopping it. Lizzie's working very hard behind the screen.
There.
Yeah.
Poor Lizzie. Yeah. Poor Lizzie gets all the stress of this event.
She does, and we just chat along merrily.
I'm remote control. There we go.
Oh.
No, it's still not working.
Can you use the mouse and take it down to the bottom left-hand corner before using your arrows?
You just need to actually just take, it says that you've got control of it. Try the mouse and try the arrows. Is it not working?
No, it worked perfectly yesterday, didn't it?
It did. Those computer gremlins. They're at it again.
We'll give it one more go, and then otherwise we'll just say next slide, okay?
Yeah. Okay. One more go. Next slide.
Thank you. Thanks everyone for your patience.
No, it's not playing. So if you leave it on that slide, and then I'll just say next slide.
Okay.
Next slide. Okay, folks, sorry about that. These gremlins do happen, don't they? Anyway, I'm going to start a wee story now about me and me best Bezzy, really, my best mate. And there she is. It was about 2 years ago that Julie managed to organise some childcare for Ollie, and she took a quick zip up to Scotland. Met her in the Buckle at Tivmore car park, and we went off climbing. It was just one of those stunning days like it has been today. We got back home, and as ever, we woke up next morning, next slide, to some drick. And it was miserly and horrible, and Julie and I, as ever, were discussing all the plans. We go through everything. And I suppose I was pretty keen to go to the climbing wall, because I knew I had a big stint of work coming up. And so Julie, being as ever humble, said, yeah, all right then. And we packed the van full of kit, and off we went into Fort William. Just looking at Julie's face, it was like, no, Julie, you haven't come all this way to go climbing at the bloody climbing wall. So I turned the van around, and off we went up to the bend to climb Castle Ridge. Now, I know that Castle Ridge can be a little bit tricky when it's wet and mizzy, but I wasn't going to say that to Julie. And we got into one of these little corners, and the next thing I hear Julie saying, for fuck's sake, is this only a moderate? A few combined tactics and everything, and we topped out, and then we're off running back home. Now, Julie and I always have this thing about stopping off at the co-op, getting a couple of bottles of wine, crisps, popcorn, you name it, and we came back to my house. Sat in the conservatory, looking over the bend, we're sort of discussing, it's like, yeah, how many years ago is it? Next slide. And there we were, 18 years ago, Julie and I first met in New Zealand. we didn't really know each other then. Her and her husband Pete had climbed Aspiring, and we decided that we all wanted to go and climb Mount Cook, and I was with a partner. I've had a few of them actually, but never mind. His name was Pete, and we went off, shared a helicopter. Next slide, please. To do this route on Mount Cook. Now, it's notoriously dangerous, and we sort of got into the hut and went up. And I always remember thinking, God, this is a long way. My cars were burning. And we actually topped out, and as yes, the Linda Glacier on the way down did show its true form. And I think it scared us a little bit, this wee trip. But that was, gosh, 18 years ago. Since then, next slide. Since then, Julie and I have sort of climbed together. And in 2005, there was an opportunity for a leaders trip to Amadablum. And Julie jumped at the chance of this because at this stage in our lives, quite a few years ago, we weren't quite sure which path we were going to take. Amadablum's a beautiful mountain in Nepal. Next slide, please. And there was me, 1998, young, fresh-faced Pennington, making a winter ascent of it. It was an Alpine style ascent, actually, where we hadn't fixed ropes. We did fix some ropes on the Yellow Tower. And I just remember that trip with these guys. And I tell you what, the biggest thing about this trip was learning that actually coming down these big mountains is a lot harder than going up. Next slide, please. It was on the leaders trip. I'd already been up Amadablum twice on that trip with some clients. And I sat at Camp 1, which is about here. Does that work? Can you see that? Yeah. Waiting for the leaders to come down. I always remember thinking, God, you know, are they going to make it? Are they going to make it? Yep. And they topped out. When they eventually got back down to me, obviously they were pretty tired. And I had been sat up there for days. And I said to Julie and the others, come on, guys, you've got to go down to base camp. You'll feel much better. I remember the tears in Julie's eyes. She said, I'm really shattered. And so was I. But we went down to base camp. And it was when we were walking out from this trip, Julie and I had a little heart to heart. You know, girls were just chatting about what we want to do with our futures, really. And I said to Julie, do you know, I really, really want to climb Everest. And Julie says, do you know, I really, really want to start a family. So off we went in our separate ways. And for years on, Julie and I have done little trips away. And it was a ski touring trip. And I did tell Julie that I can't ski. She didn't believe me. But I said, I can't ski. Of course you can ski. I said, no, I can't ski. Next slide, please. And it was on this trip. And, you know, I've searched through all my photos and I can't even find one. Julie might be able to help me out. And I just remember a bit, we were skiing and she didn't tell me about lifting my heels up. And we went up this mountain and then we had to come over a col and then we had a little abseil. Now, in our guidebook, it said that a 25, 30 metre rope would do. Looking down the abseil, we realised that our rope was not going to be long enough. There were some Germans there at the time and they had a rope down and they were faffing a bit. And I remember saying to them, excuse me, could we borrow your rope, please? And they said, yes, of course. And Julie got onto it. And can you believe it? We weren't wearing helmets. And Julie just looked up at me and we had bobble hats on. And she says, I'm pregnant. So I took my hat off, put it on her head, and then off she went. We came back from that trip with Julie saying, Adele, you really can't ski. Age 49 here, trying to learn to ski, but still absolutely useless. But never mind. So the evening went on and then I said to Julie, finally, I said, right, Julie, who's 4 years younger than me, I said, Julie, if you had all the time in the world, you had childcare and we had money, what would you like to do for your 50th birthday? It didn't take a long to actually say, I'd really love, next slide, please, to climb this mountain. I was like, oh, the Matterhorn, brilliant. All of a sudden, I was thinking, oh, what could I climb as well? Julie knew I'd climbed it a few times, but I was more than happy to return. So the Matterhorn it was. As ever, this was a couple of years ago and her 50th was last year and we have busy lives. Next slide, please. I was off to climb a mountain, Chalatsi in Nepal, and quite technical, 6,400 meters. And just to sort of explain the difference, next slide, please, the difference between Alpine style climbing and fixed rope climbing. In Nepal, when you've got really big mountains, we tend to fix the ropes so that yourself or the clients can zoom along on a Juma. And although it feels safer, sometimes I wonder if it really is. So that was my trip to Chilatsi. And Julie, next slide, please. And I met up every year, and we have done for years, in Calpe. This is our sun and rock trip. Girls on tour, shags on the beach. They're cocktails, by the way, folks. And off we go. We just like some clipping some bolts, chatting away. Next slide, please. But we always end up doing something pretty adventurous. And this is, some of you might have done this, a brilliant route that I actually got very scared on, just being a wee bit short. It's called Magical Mystery Tour. And I remember us looking down at each other going, oh, are we really going to upsell down there? But it was a superb route. That was in the December, and plans for our trip were getting confirmed to the Matterhorn. We had 2 weeks sorted. Julie was going to book the Hornley hut, £115 a night. And yeah, we are mature ladies. Come on, we are in our 50s now. And we thought, right, let's just get the hut booked, and that will be it. That's all the plans we need to make. Next slide, please. There's Julie with son Ollie. She's a very, very busy lady, head of an outdoor centre in the lakes, and a full-time mum, whereas I zip off, next slide, please, enjoying myself. And just before our trip to the Alps, I climbed this mountain, Alpine, with two clients. And this is, next slide, please, climbed purely Alpine style. 10 pitches. If any of you have climbed Green Gully on Scotland, on the Ben, it is just like 10 pitches, grade 3, 4 eyes. Absolutely fantastic. But at that height, absolutely exhausting. I don't think I've ever been so tired as when I came back down from that trip. I remember my clients, everybody's like, well done, well done. And oh, they're all welcoming us at base camp. And I just remember the tears welling up, and I was like, oh, what can we get you? And I said, I just want a cup of tea, please. That's all. Anyway, so time went on, and then all of a sudden, it's our time for the Alps. We're going. So I, busy, drive down to Kendal. I've packed the van. I've filled it with all sorts. As ever, Julie fills it even more and always has bags and bags and bags of food. And we sat chatting about where we were going to do, what we were going to do on our holiday, apart from climbing the Matterhorn. Because as you know, Matterhorn's over 4,000 metre peak, and you do need to acclimatise. I did have the heads up though, having just come back from Peru. Next slide, please. So we sat with Julie at her house, Ollie giggling at us as usual over a glass of wine. And I've got some really old guidebooks, and I bought this guidebook a few years ago when I was in the Crens, and we liked the word alpinism facile, easy. That's what we wanted. We wanted easy. We don't like being stressed. We don't like climbing hard. We turned to this picture and we said, what's that? Oh, that looks good, PD. And it's a mountain I'd never seen before. And it's called the Aiguilla de Bona. So we looked at the forecast. The forecast for everywhere else was pretty horrendous. We didn't want to go to the honeypots of Chamonix, so off we went. The next day we travelled down to Dover. Ferry was delayed as usual, and yeah, I'm always on a mission when I'm driving. I'll just like, right, let's get there. Julie said, no, we must sleep, and I'm like, no, let's go. So we travelled down, if you can see the cursor, down to sort of south of Geneva, quite a bit south, to a place called Bourg d'Orsens. A lovely village, really nice, and as usual, we're just camping in the van. I couldn't really throw Julie out into her own tent to sleep on the concrete, so I did let her share my bed. And I remember us just giggling, top and toeing. I mean, this bed's only about 4 foot wide, and but we were happy on it. First day, take it easy, girls. Don't stress, never stress. So what we did, next slide, please. We went off to climb a via ferrata. Safe sex, I call it. Clip, stay attached, and it was absolutely fantastic. We just had a ball, had a laugh, and it's pretty exposed. Remember going for a dip in the stream, nobody else around. So that was day one of our Alpine holiday. Following day, we drove up to Berard, camped overnight in a little spot. Yeah, Julie's still in the van, packed our rucksacks, ready to go up to the Sarila hut for our ascent of the Debona. Next slide, please. So off we went, and there she was, a beautiful little mountain. Don't know why I've never seen it before, but it is true. We do tend to sometimes concentrate around honeypots. So Julie and I were really excited. And have you ever noticed, folks, you know, we're all alpinists. Why is it the Brits always have really heavy rucksacks and walk in the midday sun? I don't know, but you know, there's us, big heavy rucksacks, and then sort of people pass us with their little bum bags, and you think, oh well, never mind. So we got to the hut and had a beautiful meal, beautiful evening there. One thing I like about the Debona is that it doesn't require an early start, because actually this is why I like climbing in the Himalayas, because you usually start at 9 o'clock at night, not at 2 o'clock in the morning. That is the most ridiculous hour to be waking up. So 7 o'clock next morning, next slide, we're off. Beautiful, bit of snow. We put our crampons on because we're safe girls, and wandered up to the start of the route. Next slide. And here we are, Julie leading out there, just brilliant climbing. Beautiful day, a little bit chilly, wearing a duvet jacket there. Pretty easy pitches up to the top, and yes, girls on the top. And it's quite interesting. Next slide. So you see, there's two very puffy faced girls there, and that's probably the altitude. And there's me thinking I was acclimatized. I think I was just jet lagged and kept falling asleep. But yeah, we were very chuffed with that, and we zipped back down, a couple of abseils back down, and it was only 11 o'clock. Next slide, please. So there's this little thing mountain next to the Debona, and they're called the Occidental, and we thought, oh, we'll just romp up that as well. So we romped up that, romped back down, and we're back in the valley for about 4 o'clock, thinking, brilliant, day 3, and we've already, sorry, day 2 of our holiday, and we've already done 3 routes. Look at us. So back in our overnight camp spot and discussing next plans. If you're going to climb to 4,000 meters, then you do really need to climatize to 4,000 meters. Next slide, please. So we moved from our location to Sasgrund, and going up to the Sasgrund Valley, there aren't so many parky up spots. And it's just like, oh no, we're going to have to spend some money. And the thing with Julie and I, when we get tired, too hot, and we're hungry, we snap at each other. But never mind. We pulled up in this campsite, and I'm just thinking, oh, it's going to cost us a fortune. Oh, never mind, never mind. It's our holiday. So then Julie came running back, very chuffed with herself, that actually, yeah, it did cost 40 euros, but we've got a residence pass, which means free bus and free cable cars. And we thought, brilliant, fantastic. So that actually sort of influenced our decision a little bit about which 4,000 meter peak we're going to climb. Next slide, please. So looking at Sasgrund here, we were here, and I've done about 47 of the 4,000ers in and around the Alps, and I've done the Lensspitz. I couldn't remember whether I'd done the Nadelhorn, still can't remember, but never mind. I did fancy this ridge coming onto the Lensspitz, but a little bit more technical. But we thought if we went up to the Mishabil hut, we'd have the choice of 2 routes, really. The easy normal route on the Nadelhorn or the Lensspitz. So decision made, rucksacks packed, off again, midday sun. Next slide, please. Brilliant little Via Ferrata route going up to the hut. And when we arrived in the hut, it was lovely because there's a fantastic atmosphere. And we met this Swiss guide. He was very attractive, actually. Right, stop it, Adele. And we were chatting away to him. And he's like, ladies, it's really, really cold. And he was giving us loads of advice, which is quite unusual, really. And we're like, yeah, we're up for this. We're up for this. And then in the morning, we're like all waiting to go out the hut and going off. And we did notice everybody else had ice screws on their sort of harnesses. And we're like, oh, yeah, we're crossing a glacier, aren't we? Oh, well, never mind. We haven't got any of those. And off we went. And it was cold. It was grim, actually. Next slide. we didn't see much, and here's the pair of us just before the summit. Yeah, this wasn't alpine climbing, this is like Scottish climbing. It was but we continued and topped out on the Nadelhorn. Next slide, please. And there we were. Yes, definitely Scottish winter. And the only view we got was on the way down. Next slide, please. Yeah, it was a bit misty, a bit murky. And it was funny, actually, because we knew that loads of people had set out from the hut that morning to climb the Nadelhorn, but we didn't see many of them. And I suppose that's because when we got back to the hut and the Swiss guide was there, he's like, well done, ladies. Absolutely fantastic. You weathered the weather. Oh, it was so cold. And we're like, it's just like Scotland, isn't it, in our dour English accents, but pretty chuffed because most people that day had turned round, but we didn't even give it a second thought. So back down to our campsite. Next slide, please. And here we are. Let me introduce the van. Molly, here's the little bed. And I'm like saying to Julie, you know, there's some really nice grass outside if you'd like to put your tent up. But Julie's going, no, actually, I quite like your bed. I was like, oh. Anyway, a few beers later. It's funny, actually, because Julie and I never did get drunk on this trip at the same time, which is probably quite advisable when we know what we're like. I know I've seen Julie banging off lampposts going up into Calpe, but it was that night I would just, you know, this is real mates. We're giggling, we're top and toe, and I'm busting for a pee in the middle of the night, and I'm like, oh God, I've got to get out the back doors. I can't find any shoes, but I did find Julie's flip-flops, so I popped them on my feet and I popped out, and yes, you can believe it, there I was piddling away and like, oh no, I've just wet Julie's flip-flops. I'm giggling because I'm a little bit drunk. I get back in the van. Now this girl knows me too well. She's like, you're giggling. I said, yes, I'm giggling. She goes, you've pissed on my flip-flops, haven't you? I went, yes, I have. I'm really sorry. She goes, oh, it's fine. Anyway, so that was our night at the campsite. It's funny, you know, because 2 weeks, you think you've got loads of time, and actually time was rocking on. It was only 2 days before our booking into the Hornley hut, and it's like, right, okay, time to move from Sasgrund and travel around to Randa. Now, as you know, Zermatt, you can't take traffic in, and you have to get a taxi or a train up from Tash. And we popped around to the campsite in Randa. Next slide, please. No, oh yes, sorry, forgot about this slide. And we're thinking about our route. We've been looking at the Matterhorn. There she is. So you go up to the Hornley hut and basically follow the ridge all the way up. It looks pretty steep, isn't it? This is Solvay hut, which is just over halfway, and then you're up into the snow and then to the top. Now we're getting a little bit nervous now, obviously, because we're just thinking about this all the time. Next slide, please. And we're in Randa and it's pouring with rain, absolutely pouring with rain at the campsite. And this was Wimbledon final, and it was Julie's night to get tiddled. Because we knew we wouldn't be going anywhere tomorrow, and it was the day after that we were supposed to be walking up to the Hornley hut. So Julie got tiddled. I had a strop because she didn't do a washing up and threw it all under the van. And then the following day, we walked up into Tash and we're trying to get information. We looked up and you could actually see that there was so much snow up high. And it's like the disappointment starts to really sink in. It's like, oh, is this going to happen? So Julie, because she's always the best at Besties Parlez-vous Français, or Switzerland or German or whatever, rang the Hornley hut, only to be told there was 30 centimetres of snow outside. Well, we know with 30 centimetres of snow at the Hornley hut, no guides were leaving the hut, and our hearts sank. We're like, oh, is that it over? I remember us sitting chatting, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? So we chatted it through and we sort of counted back from the end of the holiday. When was the latest date we could climb the Matterhorn and get back home, catch the ferry and get back home for our commitments back at home? And we realised that we probably could have 2 days. So we rang the Hornley Hut. Well, no, we all say the we, it's the royal we. Julie rang the Hornley Hut, and actually they were really super, super helpful and changed our booking for 2 days later. We felt okay about this. We knew it would be a little bit tight, but yeah, we could do it, and it would give us a chance. But the thought of 30 centimetres of snow sort of moving and allowing us to climb, we were like, well, it's a slim chance. So not to waste time, and we could have sat around the campsite and got a bit mizzy. We thought, right, what we're going to do, a bit lower down, keep our fitness. Yeah. So we drove back round to Saskrund. Next slide, please. Stayed in our wonderful campsite where we got our residence pass yet again. And we took the cable car up to the Vice-Mees hut. From there, you can do an amazing Via Ferrata. Now, you know, I like these Via Ferratas, don't I? It's like safe, it was chilled. And we're going up this Via Ferrata. And I don't know whether I'd failed to recognise or think about it, but there's a bridge on it. Next slide, please. Yes, and it is absolutely horrific. Julie did say, did I want to have the little video of me squealing when I'm crossing this bridge? I said, no, Julie, I don't want to tell them too much about how scared I was. But it was absolutely brilliant. Yeah, we romped up that. Next slide, please. Another little tick there, stood on the summit. Via Ferrata kit on, and that's the nice thing about climbing Via Ferrata, isn't it? You don't have all those clanky bits, you can just have a small rucksack. And then back down to the hut, where I have to say that night, Julia has a vegetarian meal, and we looked, I remember we sat there, I'm a big meat eater, but we looked and we're looking on the other table, and it was like, oh, look at those salads, Julie, this looks promising. And well, when they served her meal up, it was like, bleh. In fact, we didn't want to complain, but we did complain in the end. And yeah, we got free beer, but that wasn't going to feed us. Anyway, next morning arises. Next slide, please. And we've been looking at the hut, and we found that there was this little route here, this middle one, 4B, 4C. And we had to remind ourselves, you know, it's 4C French. And we're like, well, can we climb that? Can we climb that? Have we got enough quick draws? Bolted route. It's called Alpine and it is absolutely tremendous. So following morning, we trotted over to the bottom of the Eggenhorn, and there's a couple of girls there, and they were sort of struggling a little bit. And Julie and I were, I suppose, in a rush because we knew that night we had to get back round to Randa to pack our sats to go up to the Hornley Hut if it was going to happen. So we politely overtook them. And then we had a Chamonix guide on our tail. Now, having a guide on your tail really does make you speed up and go as quickly as you can. And we were very impressed that these two old mature ladies could actually outwit this young Chamonix guide and get to the top without him overtaking us. So that was that route. Run back down, pack rucksacks, and back round to Randa. So next slide, please. Oh, yeah. So there's the route. Sorry, there's Alpine Doost. Brilliant climbing. Next slide, please. And there we are. Next day, we rang the Julie had emailed the Hornley Hut the night before, the night we arrived in Randa, to see what the situation was, and they didn't reply. So we thought, and we tried to get through on the phone, but there was no reply. And we're like, oh well, rucksacks packed. We just have to pretend that it's all going to happen. So we booked Taxi Freddy for the morning. Actually, I just had a little diversion. This campsite really cheesed me off because at one stage, the person that was working behind the counter thought that I was Julie's mother. There you go. Anyway, change the subject. So we sat in Taxi Freddy and we're like, just starting to feel the nerves. It's a bit like the nerves I was feeling for giving this presentation. In fact, the nerves giving this presentation were a lot more than climbing the Matterhorn. And as we were in the vehicle, Taxi Freddy, an email popped through onto Julie's phone. And she's like, it's going to happen. The guides have left this morning. We're going to go and climb the Matterhorn or attempt the Matterhorn. It was like, oh, and then sort of reality set in. I always think when you're walking up through these high streets with your rucksack on, do you know, your legs just ache, don't they? It's like, oh, how am I going to get up a mountain? It's like, we can't even walk up through the high street. So up through the high street, paid our extortionate amount of money to go up on the cable car. And next slide, please. Walking up to the Hornley Hut. Now, I've climbed the Matterhorn 3 times before, and the Hornley Hut used to be a horrible place. Outside toilets, really stinky, smelly, just not nice. But actually now, £115 a night, yes, but it's like a 5-star hotel. The thing is, you're not allowed in till 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So Julie and I did what the guidebook always says, go and check the first part of the route. So off we went to check the first part of the route, and we're getting up there. And this Swiss guide who's bringing his client down is like, "What are you doing here?" It's like, he said, "You shouldn't be here. What are you doing here?" And I'm like, "Well, it says in the guidebook that we should check the route." Now, I know, so unlike our very friendly Swiss guide, this Swiss guide wasn't so nice. So we just carried on. And what we did was we built these little cairns. Now, I know Julie's in the audience and she wanted me to say it, but, these little phallic cairns, so that we knew our little way in the morning. And that was our secret. If we'd had raisins, I suppose we could have dropped raisins. But we sorted that out, came back to the hut, went into the hut. We were in this beautiful 4-bedded room, lovely bunks. It is tremendous. And that evening, next slide, we settled in to dinner. Now, it's funny how there's room for the guides, there's clients and all sorts, but Julie was determined. She'd paid £115 for her dinner, which she thoroughly enjoyed, and she was going to eat every bit of it. And we had a lovely evening chatting in there and looking at the rules for the following morning. Now, the rules are in the morning that the doors of the Hornley Hut don't open at 4 o'clock until 4 a.m. So nobody can go out. First in the queue is the Zermatt guides, then the European guides, then the British guides, and then the unguided parties, of which I think there was only 2 unguided parties. So we were, we knew we were going to be back at the queue. And, there is a little bit of a bottleneck when you first start the Matterhorn. It's that excitement, the buzz and the excitement. And I said to Julie, right, let's just calm down in the morning. Don't let anything faze you. We've got our gear. We know what we're doing. And we just stay calm. I hate those mornings. 4, whatever it was, 3 o'clock, lights go on. It's like, oh no, I don't think I've really had any sleep. Julie's, her tummy's rumbling, mine's rumbling, the nerves. We go down and have that wonderful piece of dry bread for your breakfast. And there was muesli actually, and everybody's hustle bustle in the hut, and we're going to go and get our harnesses on and trying to decide what we're going to wear because it seems really warm. And we were ready, standing in the queue. It's like, and then the door opens and it's like Grand National, everybody out. I'm like, come on, Julie, slowly, because I've done it myself, where you shoot out a hut, you shoot out on that summit morning, and within 10 minutes you're like with the altitude. We took it really slowly. Next slide, please. And there was a little bit of a queue there, but it wasn't too bad. We had our routine. We knew how we were going to get up these first fixed ropes. So can you call it Alpine style? They got fixed ropes, but never mind. So up the fixed ropes and off we were, following our little phallic cairns. There was a moment for me to go to the toilet as well, which I'm not going to mention, but I know that Julie wanted me to include it. Very embarrassing moment. But never mind, we carried on after that. And next slide, please. Brilliant climbing, scrambling, whatever you call it. I think sort of about modern, training for the Matterhorn, Skye, Castle Ridge, Tower Ridge, all those sorts of long routes. You're moving together, you're making judgment calls. And Julie and I have climbed so well together over the years. And we trust each other. We have our strengths and our weaknesses. Julie, being a bit taller than me, can always reach those higher holds. But we never, ever dispute each other's decisions. And off we went, moving up. It's sort of cairned. We could see people on the ridge. Next slide, please. Lovely climbing, taking it in turns, small pitches when we needed to, moving together when we could. Next slide, please. And 3 hours it took us, and we were at the Solvay Hut. very, very proud of ourselves. We were indeed, that these two mature ladies could get to the Solvay hut in 3 hours. We had a drink, had a stop, and then we carried on. Things got a little bit, next slide, please. So you're carrying on up beautiful rocks, there's bits of fixed rope, there's bits of tat, and just sort of higher up here, you start to get into the snow. And I suppose Julie and I made a little bit of a mistake because we were actually skittering around on snow, and we should have known better actually, come on girls, put our crampons on a little earlier. We were perched on this leg, there's people coming down now because the guides teams are coming down, we're going up, and it's like mayhem. And Julie's like, Adele, they're hustling me. I'm like, bah. And I've got this sort of little terrier bark. And I just know when the Swiss guides or the guides are getting really angry with you, I just go, fuck off. Because it's the same in every language, isn't it? But it's not being rude. It's just like, little terrier. Kept on carrying up. And eventually, yeah, next slide, please. Going through the corner, up the Solvay slabs. Next slide, please. And onto the top. Julie doesn't like these exposed ridges, and I can hear her. Wah! Wah! Now, I mean, I don't mind them so much. And there we are, coming along the summit ridge, and yeah, our little dream was coming true. Next slide, please. And there she is, Julie Cunningham, age 50, on the summit of the Matterhorn. As I said earlier, we all know that getting to the top of a mountain is really not even halfway there, because it is always much, much harder coming down. Now, to start off with, we made really good time coming down. There's these sort of big curly whirlies, I call them, where you thread your rope down. One goes down, clips that, next one down, down climb and whatever. Then you come on to the rocky section, and we were slowing down. I remember I was like getting anxious because I'm looking at the time thinking, no way are we going to get that freak if we don't move a bit quicker. And I remember saying to Julie, come on, down, move down, move down. And she's like, Adele, if you shout at me, I'm going to burst into tears. I was like, right, Adele, shut up. It doesn't matter if we miss that freak. And yeah, slap wrist Pennington, lack of patience at times. Anyway, and we'd been going far too long, and I suppose we hadn't eaten, we hadn't drunk. Classic mistakes we all make, and we slowed down a little bit. The thing by slowing down was that we lost sight of quite a lot of people coming down, but we took it after that really steady Eddie. We kept to the ridge, even though somebody told us we were on the wrong route, and we just did it step by step. And eventually, at 5 o'clock, we were back down at the Hornley hut. Next slide, please. I remember looking back up there, looking at the cloud coming in, going, I'm really, really pleased we're back down here. And I suppose then you're sort of really relieved, but you can't really enjoy the excitement of your trip because you're like, oh, you're exhausted and you're thinking. And I was thinking, right, well, it's going to be a long walk down to Zermatt. Oh dear, never mind. And Julie and I were just sitting having some food. And I could see her on the phone, and she's always on the bloody phone. And then, like, what's she up to? And then she comes hopping along with a wicked grin. She goes, I've done something. You might not like it, but you're not allowed to say no. And it's my treat. And I said, well, what have you done? She says, I booked us into the Swartzy Hotel. We've got a bunk room and an evening meal. So, and then we'll go down in the morning. Decision made, and probably the best ever decision. So we walked down to Swartzy Hotel. It's like an hour and a half walk. Next slide, please. We sat outside, celebrated with beer, looked at the Matterhorn, and then had the biggest feast ever. So, ladies and gentlemen, yeah, Matterhorn, 2 girls in the van, over 50s, yeah, whatever. Most important thing is that if you're going to do these alpine trips, is that you do them safely. And I cannot recommend going with a mate who you know really well and trust. Thank you.
Fantastic, Adele. Thank you so much for that. That was wonderful. Yeah, I really enjoyed all of the little tales you had there. And it's great to hear about that kind of female climbing partnership as well, and the fun that you have. So that's definitely something that we really encourage in the club and really appreciate ourselves. So thank you. And thank you for the time that you put kind of putting this together. We do appreciate that as well. So we've got some time for some questions, if that's all right with you, Adele, unless you want to run away. And Fab. If you want to ask a question, if you're watching on Facebook Live, you can pop it in the comments and I can ask Adele. Or if you're watching here on Zoom with us, if you'd like to ask in the chat on the bottom bar, you can write it in there. Or if you'd like to ask it to Adele in person, if you go to the little button that says participants, there's a little thing that says raise your hand, and then that pops up, and then we can come to you and ask you to turn your video and mic on. I've got a couple of questions already come in, so that's great.
I can answer them.
Well, do your best. Lucy wants to know, what are you going to do for Julie's 60th?
Oh, I think you better ask Julie. She's in the audience. She might like to answer that question herself.
Julie, are you there?
She probably want me to go ski touring.
Oh, right. Is that?
I haven't got a Scooby. And it's my 60th first, so.
It's Adele's 55th first.
It's just come up. Yeah, I'm not quite sure what I want to do. I've got some plans actually for next year.
Nice.
Which I'm not revealing yet.
Oh, how exciting. We might have to have you back and hear what you do each birthday.
It's a Scottish plan, but I'm not telling anybody yet.
Oh, okay.
There you go.
Nice, excellent. Thanks for that.
It involves
exclusive.
a bike and a rock climbing kit. There you go.
Oh, gosh, that's tantalising, isn't it? Everyone's going to want to know.
I'm not telling anybody.
Brilliant. We've got lots of comments coming in saying Magda said you invited to her 50th as well.
Yeah, Magda.
Yeah.
Well, me and Magda have got to finish the Clewlin Ridge because we had to bail last year actually. Because of the weather, so yeah, Julie, Magda. But I know Magda's off to climb the Matterhorn as well. So.
Oh right, nice. How exciting!
Not the Matterhorn, sorry, Amadablum.
Oh right,
climb the Matterhorn. It's Amadablum.
That's really exciting. Wendy wants to know technically how hard was the Matterhorn? Kind of, can you give, I don't know, British equivalent grades or anything?
Yeah, I think technically the climbing. The hardest sections which you've got ropes on would be about V-diff, but most of it would be sort of grade 3 scrambling, moderate. But it's just continuous, and it's about moving fast enough on that terrain. This is the crux with, so yeah, if you can climb moderate or V-diff, that's great, but you've got to move quickly and really efficiently and safely, obviously. So the climbing's not technically hard. I'd say the route finding is harder.
Even with lots of people on it, does it still get?
Yeah, because you get spaced out, and at night, all you can see is the head torches. And then coming down, we lost sight of everybody. Yeah.
So having that topo and those key bits of route finding info in your head.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit like the Cooling Ridge that any rock climbing guide or whatever doesn't really help. You're using a lot of intuition. As somebody said to me when I was 20, when I first did the Cooling Ridge, follow the polish and the crampon scratches, and you're looking for bits of tats, and there's then paths that go off everywhere. So it's all about that route choice and judgment and making those decisions.
And I think that skill of moving together is something that you really need to concentrate on, isn't it? And I think sometimes on easier ground, it can be quite tempting to call like European death roping, and you know, that kind of attitude, and I suppose it's how do you keep each other safe whilst you're moving across that easier ground.
Well, you're putting intermediate runners, you don't have too long a rope between you, and when, you know, on sort of that terrain where you don't want to be holding, but if you saw in one of the slides, I was holding the rope in coils, and I suppose that's the advantage. Julie's a mountaineering instructor as well, whatever the new names are. So one of us would take control in situations where we were moving on easy terrain. Yeah, one of us would have control, either me or Julie.
That kind of short roping approach.
It was short roping, but it wasn't short roping. I wasn't short roping Julie, she was, but we had control. We knew where the rope was. And we were looking out, and we were quite close to each other. And so the hardest thing is actually coming down and down climbing. So I mean, climbing V-diff going up, you've got to climb it, you know, you've got to do a lot of down climbing. And I think people miss this in the training. They don't do enough reverse climbing and moving down steep technical ground very quickly.
Yeah, great. I think there's a few questions coming in through that to kind of continue that theme. One of the things, I think it's Dr. Joe, hello Dr. Joe, has said, hello, Dr. Joe, has said, if you were checking out clients to see if they could go on the Matterhorn, would you take them out on lots of scrambling, etc., like looking at efficient movement, head for heights, etc.? Is that something
I mean,
you do?
Just get one thing clear, I don't guide on the Matterhorn because I'm not a UIAGM guide. But I do a lot of training for people wanting to go onto the Matterhorn. And it's up and down, moving quickly on that sort of terrain, you know, Sky Ridge, scrambling, Curve Ridge, Wales, you know, Canavan and Rhett, Lake District, Pinnacle Ridge, but going up it as well as coming down it. So just sort of grade 3 scrambles, moderate climbing, and don't forget you're doing it in big boots as well.
Yeah, lots of really great advice there. The rock on the Matterhorn, is it quite stable or is it a bit chossy? Kind of how does that compare?
It's a bit chossy, actually. It is a bit chossy, and certainly I think the week before Julie and I made our ascent, there was a guide and client killed with some rockfall. So you have to be careful, and this is why the guides get so upset that they don't want people to get off route. Actually, on the route, the rock is quite cleared because most of the rubbish has been sort of dissipated, but you can easily get off route, and the guides don't like it because then if you're above them, you're in their line of fire. If they're below you, you know, so you can actually see and understand why they do get a bit etchy. So not the best of rock, not like the Eggenhorn.
Yeah, that's spectacular, isn't it? Another question about, so we know that you've done quite a lot of climbing in the kind of the greater ranges, both personally and as an expedition leader. How would someone with quite a bit of alpine experience under their belt kind of make the move into greater ranges climbing?
Just make the move.
Just do it.
Just do it. Don't tackle two things. Don't tackle. So split everything up into little sections. So have your main aim, whatever that might be. But like, don't go technical and really high. So either go really high and not so technical first, and then technical and not so high. See what I mean? And then you can start to combine the two. So the Amadablums at 6.3, 6.4, they're not that high as opposed to the 8,000ers, but it's getting used to. So take it, break it down, have your final goal. So say if you wanted to climb, I don't know, Makalu, which is quite technical, climb an easy 8,000 meter peak. then do some more technical lower peaks, and then put the two together. If that makes sense.
Yeah, that does. Yeah, great advice. Thank you. And lots of people start off with kind of trekking peaks, as they call them, like Island Peak and those kind of ones in Nepal. Do you think that's a good entrance into being at higher altitude?
It depends what your aims are. If your aims are to go on commercially led expeditions, that's fine. But if your aim is to actually start to organise your own expeditions to these places, then I would probably not go on the really commercial peaks. You know, there's lots of other peaks in the Himalayas. South America, 6,000 meter peaks. So get your taste, because otherwise you'll just get caught up in a fixed rope fest. When we first climbed Amadablam, we had to put our own fixed rope. So it depends where you're coming from. Does that make sense? If you want to doing it for yourself, or you're happy to be on a commercially guided trip.
Yeah, I think the it can be quite daunting, can't it, with the whole operational arrangements for greater range of stuff as well. And I think when you go on a commercial trip, it's all kind of looked after, and you've just got to concentrate on the physical and the mental
I think you've got
side.
Becky Coles talking, haven't you, on expedition planning? So
yeah,
these sort of people answer those sort of questions.
And there's lots of help out there through the Alpine Club and the BMC and that kind of thing. About
I started off, we did expeditions to Bolivia, sort of new peaks, years and years ago, and I used to organise with friends lots of different expeditions, and I've organised Alpine Ascents in the Himalayas and that. So yeah, you just really have to bite the bullet, but don't run before you can walk.
Good advice. Yeah, thank you. Thanks for that. I've got another question come in from Max, who wants to know what would be a good climb after the Matterhorn. So if you've done the Matterhorn and you want to do some are there other kind of 4,000 meter peaks that are a bit more technical, or?
Oh yes. I'm thinking about yeah. I'm thinking now, and I'm going back. I'm going through. I mean, you've got the Guivert. You've got Kufni and Ret onto Mount Mordet. You've got all these things. There's lots and lots of different types of, like that northeast ridge of the Lenspitz, and you've got all sorts of different routes onto the 4,000 meter peaks, and Denti Herons and things like that. I think it's about looking at the routes, and I've climbed in the Alps over the last years, and things have changed massively. The conditions have changed. The Alps aren't like they used to be, but we used to go out to the Alps every summer and just climb lots of different routes. So it's about looking at update information, and I wouldn't like to say at the moment, because I have to say, my information of the Alps is not, Becky again is another person to ask, is not that great now.
I think that's something we've touched on in previous talks, the importance of having an idea of what routes you want to do, but then making sure that you check in with the local guides office and those kind of things as well, to see what's in condition, because like you say, August can sometimes be dreadful now with rockfall and when it wasn't before. So brilliant, thank you for that one. Got one last question that was given to me earlier today from Alan Leary in North Wales, who wants to know how your sport climbing career is going, and what colour headband you recommend for hard ascents. So a very serious
Is that
question.
Al Leary?
Yes.
Well, Al Leary knows very well that my clipping bolts, I think I might be able to get up to a 6A, 6B now. Al, come on. After 3 months in Spain last year, or 2 months in Spain. As to my favourite colour headband, I haven't got it here, but it's my prayer flag headband. So it's got all the colours, red, blue, yellow. So yes. And I have got a cookie stick now, because I'm only 11, right?
Excellent. Good to hear. We've got Veronica has asked to ask a question. Veronica, do you want to turn on your mic and camera, and then you can ask Adele.
I think this Veronica is my 80-year-old mother.
Oh. What question?
Zoom.
I'll see if I can find her. I don't know. Do you think? No. Okay. Oh. Do you think? I wonder if
She might not be able to.
No, that's fine.
Well, I tell you what, she's better at computers than I am. So.
I haven't. Nothing's happened, so that's fine.
Tell her she can ask me later.
Okay. Thank you for joining.
That's lovely, isn't it? When your mum wants to watch.
I know, that's fantastic. I'm glad that never goes away as well. Brilliant. Well, I think we'll leave it there for questions. Thank you so much, Adele, for joining us and answering all those extra questions. Put you on the spot as well after a long day climbing.
Brilliant.
So yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, that was brilliant. If you have other questions for Adele or anything, her contact details are at the end of the talk, so you can always get in touch with her then. So just want to tell you about what we've got coming up next. So like we said, we're coming to the end of our planned talks, so we've got 2 weekly ones left, and then after that we plan to run these but on a more kind of monthly basis. So next week we've got Becky Coles, who's another expedition leader and winter and mountaineering climbing instructor, who's coming to talk to us about Project Alpine Spirit, which is a climbing project that herself and 2 other women took part in last summer to climb all of the 4,000 meter peaks in the Alps. And she's also going to be telling us about the female history of mountaineering, so that's going to be brilliant. And then the week after we've got our dear friend Tanya Noakes, who's going to come and talk to us about climbing classic climbs in the Dolomites, and to help inspire us to our climbs, not this September unfortunately, but next September, and so that will be one to come along to as well if you'd like to know about some more off the beaten track climbs in the Dolomites. So brilliant, thank you. I'll hand over to Lizzie now.
Yeah, thanks so much. If you've missed any of the talks, definitely go onto the website. If you're a club member, we've got on our private group, all of our talks have been streamed on Facebook Live, so you can see us there. Definitely follow us on Instagram and make sure to sign up to the newsletter so you can get the latest information. We've got one coming up very soon with lots of announcements and some fun stuff, which we've not mentioned at all on this talk. So make sure that you've signed up either through the Facebook page or group or through the website. This is Adele's contact information. So she is obviously fantastic, good times to spend time with, and I imagine even more so outside and up on a peak on some adventures. So do get in touch with her if you're interested in any of her guiding services, or if you've got any other questions, get in touch with her that way. And just to end, want to say thank you so much, Adele. It's an absolute pleasure. I absolutely loved your talk of the sort of besties times in the mountains, and fantastic job. Thank you so much. Thank you for everyone for continuing to join us, even though lockdown has loosened for a lot of people. We're so happy to see you guys here, and hope that everybody's doing well and able to get out on adventures soon. So thank you so much, guys. Bye.
Bye.